All right, welcome back to the Sideline Report. Marvin Jackson here, along with Brian Mitchell, a special guest. This is his first time on the show this year. Donna Hopkins, and we have Winston Hilton and Lou Holder. And let's start out with Lou. Let's talk about this team seemed to have gone backwards. And, what is it, do you think, Lou, that could have been done to keep that from happening?
I mean, again, the choices that they made with that quarterback position has reared its ugly head again. And, there was just so many things with the coordinators, so many decisions that were made. There were games that first game of the season, you want that back. The game against Denver, you want that back. The embarrassment of the first half on both Dallas's games, right? The New Orleans game when they didn't jump at the end of the half. There's just so many things that, as Brian would say, this football is a game of inches. And when you needed it, they just did not perform. They lost home games. They lost away games. There was nothing you could really do to prevent it because they weren't that good. They weren't that good. This team is a long way away. And last year, as Brian said, as people said, was fool's gold. The worst thing that team could have done is made the playoffs because now everybody's thinking, yeah, we're really, really close. No. The last 4 or 5 games of last season, that defense that was so good, they were feeding off of second string quarterbacks. And then when they got in the playoffs, Tom Brady carved them up for almost 500 yards. So this team was never, they had potential, but they were never, ever. And then when the injuries started happening and then COVID started happening, they as they say in the vernacular, this team succumbed to their injuries.
Brian, if you were on this team, how would you go into this game against the Giants?
Well, I'm going in to try to win because, my message to the team would be, listen, everybody's not going to be here next year. And if you want to be anywhere, you have to make sure you go out there and put something good on tape. See, the thing that troubles me about this football team, I go all the way back to the all-season. I go back to training camp. They cut off early for the all-season training. They cut off early when training camp came around. They let them go early in the bye week. All these different things. See, I understand the rules of football have changed, but it's still a brutal sport, and it's still football. You have to be ready to play. This is the thing that troubles me so much. We played now 16 games, and we may have seen one complete game from this football team. Most games, they play 1 quarter or 2 quarters. They play first half or second half. When we look at this team, they were 2-6 when they went on the bye, and they decided to make changes then. Everybody was complaining about Chase Young. Chase Young and Montez Sweat both were just going up the field. That's coached. Then after they changed, they went up and under. So once Chase got hurt and all, then they started to blitz a little bit. They brought Landon down. What took you 8-9 weeks to change Landon Collins? He couldn't run in training camp. So my thing is, we keep talking about adjustments. And that is what made Coach Gibbs so great. That made Andy Reid great. It even made Norv Turner great. Okay? When it comes down to play calling, Norv Turner is one of the best. But why is it that both sides of the football take forever to make an adjustment, and they don't make adjustments till like after halftime or late in the game, after 8 weeks? This team, listen, with the talent that they have, we've seen this team come out and perform against every team that they want to. But then they don't do it but for 2 quarters. So maybe, just maybe, if you just crack the whip just a little bit more during training camp, make them have to go out there and get ready for the long term. Like when I played in preseason, I wanted to play 3 quarters and a half. Why? Because when we played that first game, I want to know that I can hit the ground running. I don't want to play less than 2 quarters. Then when you get into the season, you don't know if you can go a full game yet. And if we watch them, they did not finish those games early on because I don't think they were ready to play football just yet, physically.
All right. And Donna, talk a little bit about that. And also Donna, B. Mitch used to play quarterback. So would you put B. Mitch out there? I mean, B. Mitch, he might be
You're a little
in
Jalen Hurts
shape,
Hey, Marvin, you know what?
He's an emergency quarterback.
I would put a whole bunch of Brian Mitchells out there because of his attitude to want to win and hating to lose and knowing what it takes to win. I need players like the Brian Mitchells. I need players like the Darrell Greens. I need players like the Art Monks, the Gary Clarks that get mad and be fighting on the sidelines because you don't want to lose. Those are kind of players that I need on this team that understands what it takes to win. And maybe that's what I need in the coaching also, as the process. Because when you think about, they lose the first 4 games, come back and win the next 4 games, and then they lose 4 straight games again. It's never been any consistency on this team where you could put a pulse on who is the identity of this team. I mean, is this a team that has an offensive line that is solid moving forward? Now, I have to give it to the offensive line a little bit with the amount of injuries, and they put bodies in and they seem to be better in some areas of the offensive line. But overall, as the team, I can't understand from week to week who this team is. Are they going to win this week? Are they going to lose? Are they going to give up in the second half? I mean, when I think about the Dallas game, I think that's the one that disturbs me more. To give up 50-some points and look like that. I don't care if you had to play in 4 games. I mean, you had 4 days to play. You just had played Dallas, so you should have been ready still. But that game disturbs me more so than any game because they just took a beat down in a bad way overall that still leaves a bad taste in your mouth as far as this team.
Hey, Winston, maybe we need some more leaders on this team. Back in the glory days, they had people like Brian Mitchell, Darrell, people that would really take leadership roles. And do you see that happening anytime soon with this roster, Winston?
You got your one guy. You have Jonathan Allen, and that's about it. That's it, and that's unfortunate because Brian alluded to it in the previous segment. It's a lack of talent. The coaching is kind of suspect. Well, it's suspect. It's suspect. Okay, the fact that you go into these Donna, they are consistent. They keep on losing 4 games in different stretches
yeah, in
of
that
the year.
way.
They are very consistent. Yeah, absolutely. But there are no real leaders. Everybody talks about being a leader, but you have to actually be one. You have to either show it by example, you have to do it by vocally, or you have to do it. You just have to gather your team together. And the one guy that I see there that's doing that is Jonathan Allen. Even though he's punching his teammates or whatnot, sometimes that has to happen. Sometimes you have to slap somebody in order to get noticed and get some attention. And he did that. Hopefully guys are following, but I don't see that happening going forward unless they get, unless somehow, some way they can coerce and, back up the Brinks truck to Brian and get him to go back into that locker room. And if that's the case, then yeah, maybe I can put some of my money on Washington, but I don't know if that's happening, Brian.
You know what?
Hey,
We're going to take a break right now.
I would also add in Terry McLaurin into that mix as far as somebody who
okay.
He does it by example.
As shown by example. I mean, this is a guy who he has not embarrassed this franchise on or off the field, coming from the same school as Dwayne Haskins, the same school as Chase Young, and drafted a lot lower. And he is someone we can be proud of going forward.
All right, Brian, we got a few seconds in this segment. You want to talk about that issue?
Well, the thing about the leaders is this. I think the problem is everybody that has become leaders now are always first-round draft picks. And if anybody knows anything about pro football, just because you're drafted high don't mean you're a leader. When they put the captain mark on Dwayne Haskins, I don't think those players voted him in. The coach did that. Okay, I think Jonathan was voted in. Chase came along, and Chase seems to be a leader, a guy who's going to be there. But ultimately, Mike Sellers was a leader. He wasn't a high draft pick, wasn't drafted at all. Rock Cartwright was a leader on the football team. He wasn't drafted. Monty Coleman was drafted, late 12th, 15th round? He was a leader. The guys on your team that are producing on a regular basis, that are the workers, they become your leaders. When you want to force somebody just because they're a name, that's what you end up getting, what you're getting this year.
Lorenzo Alexander, another one.
Oh, I was going to say that, Lou. Absolutely low.
Brian, thanks for being with us. You got to come back and do it again.
All right.
All right. Donna, Lou, Winston, thanks a lot. Happy New Year again to you guys. Let's have a great year. Let's
Hey
have a great
Marvin,
year.
happy Founders Day, brother.
Yeah,
happy
happy
Founders
Founders
Day.
Day.
Happy
There you
Founders
go.
Day. Happy Founders Day. Badu
All
bye.
right. For the Sideline Report, I'm Marvin Jackson. We'll see you next time. Happy Founders Day, Lou.